The NBA playoffs have officially started and we need to talk about it. So we all know how everything heats up post All-Star break and teams are starting to actually really get it going, especially in the Western Conference, not so much in the East. Let's take a look at the Eastern Conference first. Now, coming out of the East, obviously the first team we want to look at is the Boston Celtics, who are probably, in my opinion, most likely going to represent the Eastern Conference. As we look at the other teams, the second seeded Cleveland Cavaliers are 7.5 games behind the Celtics. The Cavs have actually quietly snuck into that second seed above the Bucks, who have looked good in both their games post All-Star break. Now, when we talk about Cleveland in terms of comparing contention with the Boston Celtics, I really don't think they're there yet. Obviously, they have Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, and Jared Allen as their core. And they have picked up some good players, some good notable players like Sam Merrill this year. And they also still have Isaac Okoro, Karis LeVert, and Max Strus, who's also another pickup in the offseason. But ultimately, I do not think this team is built to compete. As earlier in the season, we were also talking about Donovan Mitchell being in trade rumors. So it just seems like the Cavs are kind of coasting. It seems like the Cavs are kind of just coasting, and now I know that's hard to say because they are the second seed, but the second seed also has to do with injuries to other teams like the Knicks, the Bucks, the Sixers especially, and teams like that. And in the playoffs, I really don't think the Cavs are going to be able to compete with teams like the Celtics or even the Knicks. I think the Knicks have a real good chance, when healthy, to beat the Cavs in the playoffs this year. Now going on to the third seed, the Milwaukee Bucks. Now let's talk about the Bucks for a minute. Obviously, a lot of turmoil going on with the Bucks this year. A lot of things going on. You get Damian Lillard, you get a new coach in Adrian Griffin, fire Mike Budenholzer from last year, and then you end up firing Adrian Griffin midway through the season with one of the best records in the Eastern Conference. And then you get Doc Rivers, who the Bucks have started 3-7 with him as their head coach, but it was also right before the All-Star break. A lot of weird things, so I'll give them a pass. But post All-Star break in both of their games, they have looked really good. The offense has looked up to par. That could just be because Bobby Portis and Malik Beasley are starting to hit shots. And we're starting to see Dame and Giannis build that chemistry together, have some camaraderie on the floor. And we're starting to see the Bucks look like an actual team. Everybody's starting to fit in. And we'll see what it looks like come playoff time. As obviously there are a lot of questions with everything with Doc Rivers, Giannis, Dame. But this does look like the team to me that's going to have the best shot to compete with the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. Now moving on to the fourth seeded New York Knicks, who have easily been one of the most fun teams to watch this year. With Jalen Brunson doing his thing, Dante DiVincenzo picking it up when Julius Randle's been out and OG Anunoby's been out. I think when the Knicks are healthy, they will have the ability to compete in the playoffs once Mitchell Robinson gets back, Julius Randle, and OG Anunoby gets back. I think the Knicks probably have one of the better matchups against the Celtics. Now, I do think in a 7-game series, the Knicks will be able to propel past the Cavs this year. But I also think they do have one of the better matchups as you have Mitchell Robinson down low. He can handle Porzingis. You can put OG on Jason Tatum and really try to make it harder for him. And then obviously you got the defensive mind, Tom Thibodeau. Defense runs his teams. Defense runs his teams. If you can't play defense, you're not going to play for Tom Thibodeau. And we all know the minutes are going to be ramped up. If the Knicks are healthy come playoff time, I really do think they have a chance to make some noise. And now moving on to the fifth seed, Philadelphia 76ers, who are starting to make less and less noise ever since Joel Embiid went out. Obviously, he's a huge part of their team. He might be their whole team, as the Sixers are looking more and more like a play-in team. Now, they did make some changes, getting Buddy Hield on the roster as trade deadline, added another scorer, added another shooter for the Sixers, who desperately need pieces to fit in with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey, and shooters that can space the floor for Joel Embiid. With Joel hurt, and even if Joel is available come playoff time, I do not see the Sixers being able to make enough noise in the playoffs, as it might be another second round exit, possibly first round this year. Another question we have in the Eastern Conference is, are the Miami Heat going to make another shocking run? Now, the other day, we did see Jimmy Butler post on his Instagram story, it's that time of the year, with an insane picture. This guy's crazy. I love Jimmy Butler. But obviously, you can't count the Miami Heat out. Been to the Eastern Conference Finals, I think, 4 out of the last 5 years. Been to the finals twice. Maybe I butchered that stat. Maybe I didn't, but it's somewhere around there. The Heat are really good, and I feel like you can never really count the Heat out. They always do something to surprise us, and we all know Jimmy Butler doesn't really care about the regular season, and he turns into a whole different animal come playoff time. And another thing to look out for, I'm not going to talk about it too much, I'm just going to hint at it, is could the Toronto Raptors possibly sneak into the play-in with the injuries due to Trae Young and Onyeka Okongwu on the Hawks? That would be something to keep an eye out for. Now going over to the Western Conference, the playoffs have definitely started over there. No team can really afford to lose too many games right now, as seeds 1 through 8 are separated by 7 games. Just to put that into perspective, the first seeded Boston Celtics are 7.5 games above the second seeded Cleveland Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference. And here in the West, we have seeds 1 through 8 separated by 7 games. Now, if we break it down even more, seeds 5 through 10 in the Western Conference are only separated by 4 games, and seeds 5, 6, and 7, the Kings, Suns, and Pelicans are all tied right now, with the Dallas Mavericks in the 8th seed only half a game behind the Pelicans. Now, obviously, this is a big deal because only the top 6 can make the Western Conference, and seeds 5, 6, 7, and 8 are all separated by half a game. We're going to see the Kings, Suns, Pelicans, and Mavs all fighting. And the Suns are put in a similar situation they were in last year. So are the Mavericks. Not as bad because last year the Mavericks were fighting for the 10th seed and missed the play-in. This year it'll be the Los Angeles Lakers and the Golden State Warriors fighting for the 9th and 10th spot in the Western Conference play-in. Now, obviously, the Warriors are 3.5 games above the Jazz, and they're probably going to clinch it out. So the Jazz will probably end up not making the play-in. It will be the Warriors and Lakers in that 9th and 10th spot. And I really couldn't see a world where any of these teams would want to play LeBron James or Steph Curry in a play-in game. As for the first 4 seeds in the Western Conference, they are only separated by 2.5 games. First seed being the Minnesota Timberwolves at 40-17, then the second seed being the Oklahoma City Thunder also at 40-17. The Timberwolves had the tiebreaker over the Thunder. Then in third place, we had the Denver Nuggets at 39-19, and fourth, we had the Los Angeles Clippers, who are 37-19. Now, these 4 teams are obviously probably a lock to make the playoffs, but we can't count anything out as we have seen more drastic things happen. But if you're one of these top seeds right now, you got to ask yourself, is there any way I can avoid LeBron James or Steph Curry in the first round? Because those are going to be tough tasks. That's going to be a tough challenge. And you're not going to see them in the first round. But on the other hand, you also don't want to see Devin Booker or Kevin Durant in the first round. Either you don't really want to see Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving because offensively they will give you problems. So there's only really 2 teams you're really looking at that would want to play over any other of these teams, in my opinion, if you're one of the top seeds, if you're one of the top 4 seeds in the Western Conference. And that would be the Sacramento Kings or the New Orleans Pelicans. Simply being both teams have kind of struggled this year quite a bit, I'd say, compared to last year and compared to expectations they've had. The Pelicans, obviously they have Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum. They have Trey Murphy, they have Herb Jones, but it just hasn't really translated well this year. And I say that lightly because they are the 7th seed, but it's also the Western Conference. And the Pelicans, I don't know the numbers. I don't know what seed the Pelicans would be in the East, but they'd be probably pretty high up there, I could imagine. And then the other team being the Sacramento Kings, simply because they have the least experience. Last year was the first year making the playoffs in 16 years. They went 7 games with Steph Curry. The Kings do have potential to be scary, but I also feel like they aren't really as good as last year, as polished as last year. The defense hasn't been there. But who knows? Maybe come playoff time, all that will change. Now, also, if you're one of these top 4 seeds, you do not want to let the Denver Nuggets get the first seed. As if the Denver Nuggets get the first seed, the defending champions, they will probably have a smooth sail run through the playoffs, not having to face the Clippers, Suns, Lakers, or Warriors, if that matter. It's a good possibility if the Nuggets get the first seed that they won't have to play any of those teams, and they could just coast their way to represent the Western Conference in the NBA Finals. Now, focusing back down to the play-in, as really seeds 5 through 10 are all fighting for that spot right now, are all fighting for play-in seeding right now and who they're going to play, and trying to get those last 2 spots to clinch a playoff spot and not play in the play-in. Now, if you ask me, my predictions for who's going to clinch those last 2 spots, I honestly think it's going to be the Phoenix Suns and the Dallas Mavericks. Now, reason I say Suns, because obviously they have KD, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal. Yusuf Nurkic has picked up his play a little bit. Royce O'Neal has been a good addition for him. And I just think they're going to be able to keep scraping these games out and hopefully not lose games like they did the other night to the Rockets when they're supposed to win. Now, the reason I say the Dallas Mavericks, I really love what they did at the deadline, adding P.J. Washington and Daniel Gafford. Was a good pickup for them. And obviously when P.J. Washington has played and Daniel Gafford has played, the new additions, the Mavericks have looked phenomenal. And then you add in the factor of Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, who's going to give you a bucket whenever they want. Now, we did see the Mavs fall apart against the Pacers last night as the Pacers absolutely demolished them in the 4th quarter. Obviously, defense is still going to be a little bit of a problem for them. But with P.J. Washington and Daniel Gafford, the defense has picked up a little bit. And I think they'll be able to sneak into that 6th-seeded spot above the Pelicans, obviously, because I just don't trust the Pelicans. I don't find them consistent at all. Now, I know they've dealt with some injuries along the way this year. People have been in and out of the lineup, but that's also a factor, right? You need consistency. You need your guys to play. You need all of your guys to be there to be one coherent unit. And maybe the Pels pick it up, but I just don't see them picking it up right now. I just don't see them picking it up, and I do think they will end up being in the play-in again like they were last year. And yeah, the NBA is picking up again, and I'm excited for the playoffs before the playoffs, or the playoffs before the play-in, and then the playoffs.